Woohoo! Good morning. Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We've got so much to get to, and as always, I am live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You can find me on Rumble as well. We've got so much to get to. I want to start with the MAGA War Room PAC. They had already turned Kamala's screw up on The View into a pro-Trump ad, and I think it's just amazing. And then I also want to talk about the Michigan governor and the Illinois governor. This is a really weird clip. It's very cringy. You know, JB Pritzker has been doing some really cringy things lately, and I'm not unsure. I'm not understand why. I'm very unsure of why he's doing that. There was prior to the debate a photo that was circulating around, and it had a picture of him and MK, I believe, and it said balls to the walls, and then they, of course, spelled balls, B-A-L-Z, and then walls, W-L-Z, and they said balls to the walls on this sign, and they were holding it up, and they took a photograph with it, and I mean, that's so cringy. And it makes me start to question, like, if they've got the time to do this cringy staging campaigning for Kamala Harris, they've got way too much time on their hands. What are you even doing? You know, the fact that you've got this much time to film cringeworthy videos, the fact that you've got time to take pictures with balls to the walls, you've got way too much time on your hands. And the people of Illinois would do so much better without you. Okay, I at this point, I question your work ethic. I question if you even do anything. If you're sitting around making cringy videos with Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer all day long. All right. I do want to talk about that. I also want to talk about the Teamsters president. This is huge. He blasts the Democrats for selling out the working class. We know that the Teamsters union did not endorse Kamala Harris, which is like the first time in years where they didn't endorse a Democrat candidate. Now, they have endorsed Republicans in the past, but they refused to endorse Donald Trump, although the union membership did vote 60-40 for Donald Trump. The union membership did, but the union mob bosses, the leadership, they refuse to endorse Donald Trump. I don't know why that is. They don't have the cojones to go out there and actually endorse the guy who's going to do right by your working class families, your working class people. That's Donald Trump. We talked about the Illinois firefighter, or Illinois, the International Firefighters Association, the IAFA, I don't know, it's another union. We talked about them yesterday and how they didn't endorse Kamala Harris either. And all of these non-endorsements of Kamala Harris just effectively are endorsements for Donald Trump. So we're going to get to the Teamsters president blasting the Democrats for selling out working class people. All right, I do want to get to all of that, but let's start with this campaign ad because it's really good. Kamala Harris. Okay, so according to Kamala, she is perfect, and there's not a single thing that she would change. There's not one thing that she would change about Joe Biden's presidency, her administration. If she had to do it all over again, she wouldn't change a thing. That's what she said on The View. However, somebody really needs to tell her, okay, if you want to lead the free world into prosperity, and if you are serious about becoming president, you need to humble yourself a little bit. Humbleness would not hurt your campaign there, Kamala. She would benefit from hearing that advice. Make America Great Again Incorporated. They released this ad, and it shows everything that Kamala wouldn't change. She said it, quote, I'm going to quote her here from The View. Not one thing comes to mind when she was asked, what would you change about the Biden administration? What would you change during your time as vice president? We know that she was de facto president for most of this first term of Biden because Biden's not running anything. We know this. She's de facto the president. So let's take a listen to this ad. And you guys can watch it on YouTube or Rumble. Here we go.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
The president's withdrawal was a complete and utter catastrophe. The images of people hanging off of planes and desperate parents handing their babies over the airport walls to soldiers are seared into our country's collective conscience.
The withdrawal was a catastrophe, in my opinion, and there was an inexcusable lack of accountability and negligence.
Prices for everyday things like groceries are still too high. You know it and I know it.
You are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it.
Okay. So she wouldn't change the prices. She wouldn't change how they withdrew from Afghanistan. She's comfortable with the Biden administration's Afghanistan withdrawal. In fact, she's so comfortable, she boasted about it. You guys remember? She boasted that she was the last person in the room when they were making that decision. She still seems proud of that, which makes no sense considering how many lives were lost. What was it, 13 service members? And beyond 13 service members' lives were taken. And then outside of that, civilians there. I mean, it's just so sad. It's just so sad. But she this is going to be a de facto second term, because we know that she was running things during the first term. We know Joe Biden has dementia and he's senile. She doesn't care, and she's going to do it all over again. So what about the border? In the clip, it shows just migrants crawling up the wall, taking big old ladders, putting ladders up against the wall and climbing over the wall. I mean, what about the border? You wouldn't change the border? You wouldn't change a thing about that? Because we're all suffering from an alien invasion. I talked with you yesterday about the employment numbers. Americans did not see a growth employment, job growth. The only people who saw job growth was foreign nationals, foreign-born workers. Okay, those are the only people who are seeing job growth in this country. You wouldn't change the alien invasion? And I hate it. She pretends that she's going to do something once she gets in there. But right now, she could do something. Right now. But she couldn't care less. She couldn't care less. She claimed she wouldn't change anything about everything that this Biden administration has done. She says, I will not do anything different. I wouldn't change a thing. That's what she said, quote, on The View. She literally announced to the world that she's proud that she's made your life miserable. For the last several years, she appears to have barely gotten started. She's just getting the ball rolling here, folks. It's going to get much, much worse. Are groceries still too high? Yes, because of her tie-breaking votes. The American Rescue Plan Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. I've talked about this several times. Those votes, those tie-breaking votes, increase the cost of everything. In the Inflation Reduction Act, I always say this and tell friends about this. In that act, there is the electric vehicle credit, of $7,500, where you just hand out Jerry Springer checks, as I like to call them, Oprah Winfrey checks. So here's your check. She just hands them all out in this Inflation Reduction Act that she voted for. It was a tie-breaking vote, $7,500 for an electric vehicle. Guess what Ford did? Not even a few months later, they hiked up the prices of their electric vehicles to by $8,000. Okay, so that's not a coinkydink. Okay, the Inflation Reduction Act contributed to 20% higher inflation. She's barely getting the ball rolling. We're going to see more. It's hyperinflation, and she's proud. She's proud of her record, and there's no reason. And like I said, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why she says she's proud here, because her whole campaign, she's been pretending to fix this damage, or that she'll fix this damage. And, I don't understand. You've got to pick one. You can't be in this lane and say that you're proud of your record. And then you can't also be in this lane and say that you're going to fix the damage once you get into office. But she thinks that the American people won't notice that she's proud of her record and running on her record, but then also in the same breath not running on her record and saying that she's going to fix the damage that she's done. Okay, so she's mocking voters. She's really just mocking voters. She uses these ambiguous word salads, big words, because she knows she's not supposed to be there. I have a theory about Tim Walz as well. I think that he knows he's not supposed to be there, and that's why he continuously lies. He lies for no reason. He lies about things that nobody would ever lie about. Getting the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce endorsement. He lies about his wife going through IVF treatments. He lied about his military service, surfing in a combat zone. This guy lies for fun. Now, I have another theory about Tim Walz. It could be because he's so deep in the closet that he is worried somebody's going to find that out, and then he's got to lie about everything else in his life because he doesn't want people to catch on that he's deep in the closet and I mean, who gives his wife a handshake? That was weird. Come on, let me know. 309-451-9299. Just very weird. So she uses big word salad because she knows she's not supposed to be there. She's a puppet, and she thinks that you're dumb enough, and she mocks you by using these big word salads. Trump has a record, though. Trump has a record, and voters have lived under both administrations. And the ironic thing is Kamala's proud of her record, and Trump is also proud of his. And that's all you really need to know going into the voting booth. Okay, that's all you really need to know when you're marking up your ballot. So if you want more of the same, go ahead, vote for the lunatic who can't put sentences together. Vote for her and Tim Walz, who's deep in the closet. Vote for them. Or if you want things to go back to the way they were before the pandemic, by the way, before the pandemic, the Trump administration, before the pandemic, you know what to do. You know what to do. If you want more of the same, go ahead, vote for the lunatic who can't put a sentence together. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I'm really excited about this story. The Michigan governor and the Illinois governor, JB, our governor, they're shilling for Kamala Harris. Now, I begin to question, I don't understand what they do all day. It seems like they're just campaigning at this point for Kamala Harris. If you've got time to make these really cringy videos with each other, then you guys probably have way too much time on your hands. And I think that the Illinois people and the Michigan people would be much better off without you. As governor, they'd be better off without you knuckleheads. All right, I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Hey, good morning. Oh, yeah, I think Trump's going to win 100%. I think it's going to be like 65, 35, something like that. 60-40 with Donald Trump, right? And Kamala Harris. I think it's going to be, if not a blowout, it's going to be not 50. It's not even going to be really all that close. That's what I'm predicting for this election. I mean, she just destroyed her campaign by saying on The View, I wouldn't change a thing. Her whole entire campaign has been running against her record, saying that she's going to fix the damage that this administration has caused Joe Biden. But she said out loud that she's proud of this and that she wouldn't change a thing about the Biden administration. Yes, 28 days till the election. So I want to take some time and talk local elections. Okay, so I have a list of candidates that are going to be appearing on the Conservative Cat Show in the coming weeks. And I want to be sure that you guys are equipped with the knowledge you need to mark up your ballot, because we're your election headquarters. So I'm going to be having guests on. Now, one thing you need to know is Chad Burke. This is a crucial district. Now, Chuck Erickson, he ran for the Illinois state representative, and he's no longer going to be in that seat. Now, McLean County Board is split. It's split right now. And unfortunately, it's going to be a fight to keep just the split. Okay, so I don't know if we're going to wind up keeping that split. I hope we do in this election. But District 5 is going to be crucial because Chuck Erickson has had a stronghold in that district for quite some time. People know him, but I'm sure a lot of people don't know who Chad Burke is. Chad Burke is running as a Republican there in that District 5. What you need to know about Chad Burke. Chad Burke, there was a point in which he applied to fill a vacancy after John McIntyre had stepped down. He had applied to fill a vacancy on the county board, and what's completely disturbing about the Democrats is that they will stoop to such low levels. And Elizabeth Johnson, Lizzie Johnson, aka she takes pictures with Sharon Chung, Dave Kaler, far leftist. She made Chad Burke relive his trauma of being stabbed multiple times. Okay, so Chad Burke was stabbed multiple times. There was an injustice where he was arrested. He was stabbed multiple times. This guy had a record of stabbing other people. And the judge, essentially said, I'm so sorry this happened to you, where law enforcement arrested you instead of this guy. And he's still out there. This guy is still out there after stabbing Chad like 19 times or something crazy like that. And the law enforcement and the system was weaponized against Chad, unfortunately, in Normal. And he had to go through hell. Literally, just hell on earth he had to go through to try to jump through all these hoops to clear his name. Eventually, the judge, once it got in front of the judge, he goes, I'm sorry this happened to you. This shouldn't have happened, right? So Chad, and there's a long story. This guy was just a criminal. And there's a long story of how it led up to him stabbing him in his own, right by his own yard, right? Chad Burke's yard, this guy. But what was disturbing was that you had the Democrat, Elizabeth Johnson, questioning him about it when he applied for the vacancy and made him relive his trauma. Democrats will say that they're the compassionate ones. They're not. They're not compassionate. And to have the victim relive a trauma like that, and it really didn't matter. It didn't matter. He wasn't convicted of anything. He was arrested, but he wasn't convicted of anything. He didn't serve time or anything like that over this stabbing, where the justice system was weaponized against him, and this guy got, criminals prioritizing criminals over law-abiding citizens. That was that case there, right here in Normal, and you had Lizzie Johnson questioning him about this traumatic experience he went through, and they'll stoop so low. It doesn't matter because these people are not compassionate, and they don't care that there's pro-criminal. If you want more of the same in McLean County, go ahead, vote for Lizzie Johnson. Go ahead. If you want more shootings to take place at Illinois State University like that, if you want Chicago to come to McLean County and have these people drinking outside of the gas station, these delinquents drinking and hurting each other and popping people, go ahead, vote for more of the same. Vote for Democrats, because this stuff didn't used to happen when McLean County was red. It didn't. Hey, good morning. Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in. We've got comments rolling in. At least she's steadfast and has a strong belief that she sucks and wouldn't change. Yeah, that's Kamala Harris. Yeah, she just sucks and she's proud of that. Okay, she wouldn't change a single thing. That's what she said on The View. And, so many things pop up in my head. I'm like, okay, Afghanistan withdrawal. Were you comfortable with the Biden Afghanistan withdrawal? Of course she was. She boasted about it. She said that she was the last person in the room when they were making the decision on how to withdraw She's proud of that. The border, right? The alien invasion. You wouldn't change anything about the alien invasion? Of course not. She wouldn't change that. Those are her voters. Okay? She wouldn't change that. The high gas prices, the high grocery prices, she wouldn't change any of that. Why? Because the more you pay at the gas pump, the more you pay at the grocery store, the more money they make. How's that work, Kat? You're taxed. You're taxed on goods, services, your tax, sales tax, they tax you on everything. And if everything is going up, the more money just gets funneled into these people's pockets. The people, the public sector people who've never worked a real job in their life. And I hate this. Kamala Harris, she was on with Howard Stern, which is kind of funny. I don't know much about Howard Stern because I'm young. I'm 25 years old, so I didn't really grow up in the 90s or I was never a Howard Stern fan. However, I hang out with plenty of men who were Howard Stern fans. Our operations manager was a Howard Stern fan. Also, my dad was a Howard Stern fan. This guy was a rebel. He was a punk. He was like a rocker. He also did really raunchy radio shows, right? Really raunchy, went over to satellite radio, but he did really raunchy things. If any of you grew up with Howard Stern, you know this, 309-451-9299. Did you watch Howard Stern? Did you listen to Howard Stern? He did some really weird, screwed up things, Howard Stern, and he was always anti-establishment. He was always against the government because they were always after him via the FCC. Like, he was constantly breaking FCC rules, and he was like, okay, this is freedom of speech. You should not be canceling me. You should not be censoring me. He was like me, but I'm not so raunchy as Howard Stern. He's like me on YouTube, right? Where they're constantly censoring me if I talk about Anthony Fauci and about how he's gotten the jab multiple times and still contracted COVID like 6-7 times. Like, you got to be kidding me with this at this point. The jab probably contributes to your COVID-19, your COVID-19 illnesses and you coming down with COVID-19. But YouTube will cancel me for that. Back then, Howard Stern was always canceled by the FCC. Now, he was cussing a lot of the time, but he was like, look, it's free speech. It's protected. I should be protected. He was anti-establishment. He was anti-government. So he makes some sort of radical shift. And now he's like straight up an establishment shill, has Hillary Clinton on his show, has Kamala Harris on his show the other day. And I just think it's so crazy that you've got Howard Stern interviewing Kamala Harris, who's the biggest establishment gal out there. She is the puppet for the establishment. I mean, it doesn't get more establishment than that. So Howard Stern is interviewing her and kissing her butt. At one point, I think there was a question on Sirius XM radio. I know you probably don't have Sirius XM radio because it's 2024. And who pays for radio, right? We don't. All we ask is that you contribute and you frequent the businesses that air with us, that advertise with us. That's all we ask. And we don't ask for subscription or anything like that for this show. So all we ask is that you advertise with us if you're a business owner, or you frequent the businesses that advertise with us. That's all I ask. Or subscribe to the YouTube channel. That helps us out a lot too. But he's on the Sirius XM radio channel and he's talking with Kamala. And then at one point, this really grinds my gears. He started asking Kamala Harris about Doug, her husband, who's come under fire lately. Apparently he's short-fused and has a bit of a temper. Doug does. Doug Emhoff, who has a couple of children, and Kamala is not a mother. And I think it's so funny people call her Mamala. I think her stepkids call her Mamala. And now, Drew Barrymore, she was on her show and she goes, the country needs a Mamala. The country needs a Mamala. And everybody calls her Mamala. It's really kind of funny. She's not a mom. She's a stepmom. People are going to be all upset and like, how could you? Now, come on. The kids were pretty much grown by the time these two got together. Okay, they got together, I think, around 2007, somewhere around there. So the kids were kind of already grown. But point is, she's not a birth mom. No offense to all the good stepmoms out there, okay? Not saying anything bad about you. I'm just saying that she's not a birth mom, okay? So she was asked about Doug, and Howard Stern was kissing her butt and saying, "Oh, how's your romantic relationship in the beginning? Being that you're such a strong woman. You're such a strong woman. Was that intimidating for Doug?" Like, what? This is what Howard Stern is interviewing Kamala Harris about? Oh, you're such a strong woman and men are intimidated by that. No. Men are not intimidated by your success, by your career. Now, I'll tell you what makes them, or what makes you unattractive to men is your girl boss energy and you think you're smarter than everybody else in the room. That is an unattractive trait of women, and maybe men will be turned off by that and say, no, I'm not going to be dating you. You act like you're too smart for everybody else in the room, and you act stuck up, But Kamala Harris, she answers, and she gives like pretty much a non-answer, and she says that Doug is like the sweetest, and then she calls him simple. She goes, I don't want to call him simple, but yeah, he's like simple. It's just like, what? So there's that interview. And then you've got Bill Whitaker on 60 Minutes. She's she's doing a media tour and why is she doing that? Because she's sucking in the polls. So Bill Whitaker, 60 Minutes. This guy is a traditional leftist, has always been an establishment shill. And then you've got him out there. I mean, it's almost like him and Howard Stern, like reversed roles here, where you've got this guy who's been an establishment shill all his life, Bill Whitaker, who's pressing Kamala Harris, who says, okay, but how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for $25,000 in down payment assistance for first-time home buyers? How are you going to pay for Jerry Springer checks, $6,000 to people who have kids and not require them to have an income? Okay, that's not a tax credit. There's no requirement. You don't have to pay taxes in order to receive a tax credit. You're just giving people money at this point. The term baby mama, it comes from somewhere. You have the kids just to get the check. That's what we're going to wind up having under Kamala Harris' plan if she winds up getting this passed. And Bill Whitaker pressed her on it. Okay, we live in the real world. How are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for this? So it was really kind of funny to see these two interviews take place. She's on a media tour. I want to get to this. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, they have time to film these cringeworthy videos. Very cringeworthy, very, very weird. And this just proves how irrelevant these people are. They're weird theater kids who grew up, they probably sat alone at the lunch table, and they grew up and now they're all buddies in the public sector. You've got Governor J.B. Pritzker and the Michigan governor filming this really weird, cringy video. And like I said, Illinois would be much better off without J.B., without Gretchen Whitmer, without these knuckleheads. Take a listen. Here we go.
JB,
Gretchen,
did you know Kamala Harris is going to lower costs for working people?
but did you know that Kamala Harris is going to restore Roe?
But did you know she'll work to onshore supply chains?
But did you know that she's going to create good paying jobs for working families?
But did you know she'll fight for every person so they can get ahead?
Well played, Gretchen. Well played.
JB,
Gretchen.
All right, that was weird. It was very cringy. I'm going to take a quick break, but we're going to be right back on Conservative Cat, breaking that video down. I've got more cringy videos. The next video is just Gretchen Whitmer. She's at a Culver's, and she's like eating cheese curds and popcorn, and she's just doing really cringy things, and she's shilling for Kamala Harris. I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat. Gretchen. Like, I also don't understand this video at all. They're like bouncing back and forth, and he's got like the bear down, medallion there, the Bears thing, and then he dresses in a Cubs jersey. I don't understand how like Chicago sports, I don't understand how that's representative of, and like she has the Detroit Tigers jersey on, and they're like got the foam finger. I don't understand how that really makes me want to go vote for Kamala Harris. I don't even understand how the two are correlated. Like Kamala Harris's race and the Chicago Bears medallion here, and them being dressed up in sports garb. I don't know what. Just very cringy. And did you know that Kamala Harris had the highest inflation in 40 years, JB? Did you know that Kamala Harris has the worst migration crisis? Did you know that Kamala Harris got the U.S. involved in 2 foreign wars? Did you know that we have an unprecedented housing crisis? Did you know that we have spent more money on Ukraine than we have the homeless population here in the United States? Did you know that Gretchen Whitmer and the FBI, they got busted for staging a fake kidnapping of Gretchen just for the optics? Just for the optics. I know that they did that. I know that the FBI staged a fake kidnapping. We all know. So I regret to inform you that Gretchen Whitmer and JB, they're out there filming these cringy skits on TikTok. And that's the thing about the Democrats, is everything in their life is staged. Everything that they do is staged, faked, and forced. They just force things on you. They fake things, they stage things, and it's because they are weird, creepy theater kids. This is somebody who was in the theater, by the way. I grew up with some of these kids. They grow up to be public sector employees, and it's kind of funny because, I could have called it. I was like, no, that guy's going to grow up, and he's definitely going to be a public sector worker, a public teacher, school teacher. No hate on the public school teachers, but there's a type. There's a type that doesn't want to work for anything, and then they're like, how can I get money without actually working? Oh, I know. I'll go into the public sector. And I'll work for the public sector, and I'll take money from the taxpayers. And that'd be one thing if the service was good. If the service was great. Now, I had gone to the Logan County DMV. Shout out to the ladies who work there. They actually provided a great service. The lines were short, and they were kind of quick. Now, the process is slow. They were quick, but the process is slow, right? I was changing my name recently, got married, but they were very quick, and I don't mind when my taxpayer dollars pay for services that are right on, that are good. I don't mind. Okay. I understand that we have taxes. There's a few things in life that are certain: death, taxes, and conservative cat airing Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. There's only a few things in life that are certain. Okay. But, like I said, don't mind paying for a good service, but there's a lot of services out there that the public sector offers that suck. For example, I couldn't think of a better example. Our public school system. The public school system sucks. Okay, I don't care who you are, it sucks. The kids can't read at grade level. They can't do math at grade level across the board, across the nation. But specifically here in Illinois, it's really bad. And I don't like paying for schools that a majority of your property tax bill goes to the school. So whatever you pay in property taxes, a majority of that is going to the school. I don't like that. I think that's I think that they're getting way too much money, and I think that there is no product. There is no service being provided because the kids can't read. They're passing the kids even though they can't read. I always share this story. I went to college at Illinois State University. You guys know this. And this woman, I say woman because she wasn't a kid. She was a sophomore in college, and somehow she made her way all the way up to being a journalist sophomore in college. And I was holding interviews for an internship, and I had to decline her for the internship because the girl couldn't read. We did accept her. We thought that it was just kind of but we had to tell her, look, this isn't working out, you know, and I had to fire this poor girl. I mean, we weren't paying her, but it was an unpaid internship. But I had to tell her, look, we got to let you go. You can't read. I mean, it was shocking to me. And that's really sad that she's gotten all the way up to sophomore in college and nobody failed her. Nobody held her back. Nobody said, hey, let's hold you accountable. Let's get you up to speed and let's get you able to read. I mean, what? We live in America. Our literacy rate should be off the charts, and it's not. And that's a reflection of the public school system and the people who work in that system. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Like I said, Gretchen Whitmer, JB Pritzker, they have time to film these really cringy videos, and that just proves how irrelevant these people are. And the people of Illinois, the people of Michigan would probably be much better off if these knuckleheads weren't in their positions, if they weren't elected officials. I begin to question if the public sector is just way too bloated. Do we even really need Governor J.B. Pritzker? Do we really need this guy? Do we need a governor at this point? Because, I mean, if he's just going to spend his time filming cringy, fake, staged videos with his gal pal, Gretchen Whitmer, let's not keep electing this guy because he's using up his time creating these videos. Now, I do want to play one more video. I played JB and Gretchen Whitmer together, and they were like, did you know that Kamala Harris is going to restore Roe? Well, I've got some did you knows. Did you know that Kamala Harris has the highest inflation in 40 years? Did you know that we have the worst migration crisis we've ever seen in American history? Did you know that Kamala Harris has gotten us involved in 2 new foreign wars? Did you know that Kamala Harris has been at the helm of the unprecedented housing crisis? Did you know that Kamala Harris spent more money on Ukraine than our own homeless people? And did you know that Gretchen Whitmer and the FBI, they kind of got busted for staging a fake kidnapping of Gretchen just for the optics? They wanted it to look like she got kidnapped for the narrative and for the optics. I know. We all know. We all know these things. So I regret to inform you that she is out there making these cringy videos. This one is just Gretchen, and I don't know who else this is. Probably some sort of celebrity or staffer. I don't know. But she's playing charades with this guy, wearing a Kamala for President t-shirt, and she's at a Culver's. So take a listen here.
Let's play some charades, Jack.
Challenge accepted, Governor. Oh, I know what it is. It's Kamala Harris's plan to give first-time homebuyers $25,000.
Jack, that's incredible. Oh, I know. It's Kamala Harris's plan to keep lowering the cost of prescription drugs and put more money back in people's pockets.
It's Kamala Harris's plan to lower costs for working families by giving a $6,000 child tax credit.
Jack, Donald Trump just doesn't get us. That's what it was. He's never even been to a Culver's, been to a grocery store. He doesn't know our lives. Movie. 2 words. First word. Miscongeniality. Let's play.
Oh, that was so bad. It was so cringy, weird, very weird. Like I said, everything about the Democrats is staged, faked, and forced. It's unclear what these videos are for. I don't know what she was trying to accomplish here. It just looks like more propaganda from the most stupidest people in our society. I mean, these people are the most stupid people in our society are out there currently making cringy videos at Culver's. And, it's unclear what drawing a square with your fingers. That's what she did in this video. She drew a square with her fingers in the air. I don't know how that's representative of Kamala Harris pretending that she's going to fix the housing crisis with her $25,000 to people with down payment assistance. first-time homers with down payments, which is just going to make the problem so much worse. I mean, every economist will tell you this. I mean, basic economy 101 will tell you that this is going to make it so much worse because you're saturating the housing market with more demand. Okay, if you give people $25,000 for down payments, you're going to increase demand, and there's already low supply. Why is there low supply? Because it's too costly to build the houses. I mean, the lumber, the paint, the siding, the roof, it's all too costly. The materials cost is too much. And there's not enough houses to meet the current demand. And if you just give more money to people, it's going to increase that demand even more. So it's going to make it even worse. Additionally, the first-time home buyer assistance will only make things worse, but it's a lie. I don't even think she's going to be able to do it. Okay, much like the we're going to give money to college students for their student loan debt. I think it's a lie. I don't even think that they're going to do it. So her real intent is to give more generous support for first-generation homeowners. Okay, I don't even think that she's going to do home buyer assistant programs. I think that she's just going to write out checks, and she's going to try to support these first-generation which I think it's unconstitutional. I really do. I like the student loan program, the debt relief program. I think it's all unconstitutional. You can't give money to some people and not other people like that. Okay, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So she also pretends to eat popcorn. And then I don't know how that represents Kamala lowering the cost of prescription drugs. So they start popping I think it's cheese curds, and they start mimicking eating popcorn, and somehow that's the charade, and that is representative of Kamala Harris lowering drug costs. She never did that, by the way. She's just taking credit for things Donald Trump did at this point. Kamala Harris isn't going to do that. She's never done that. And Donald Trump actually did that. Kamala Harris is just taking things out of Donald Trump's playbook here. But again, these people think you're dumb. They think that you're as dumb as they are. And the fact that Gretchen finished her lesson here, her charades lesson, claiming that Kamala Harris is going to be putting money in the people's pockets, that's just a slap in the face. Okay, she finished up her little charade lesson with Jack here by saying that she's going to put more money in your pocket. That is a slap in the face, and we all know it. We're struggling to make ends meet, and it's because of her tie-breaking votes. It's because of her tie-breaking votes. And while the left claims that they're all in it for the little class, they're actually the richest elite among us. I was telling you a little bit about the Howard Stern interview. I listened to it a little bit. The Howard Stern interview was so elitist. I mean, they opened up the interview talking about celebrities they knew, talking about artists that they liked. I mean, do you talk about that in your day-to-day life? Oh, I know this celebrity. I know this celebrity. I like this artist. I like this artist. I don't think you talk about that in your day-to-day, from day to day. Is that what you're worried about? What celebrities you know and what celebrities are doing? No. So I do have to take a break, but we're going to be talking about the Teamsters president, because the Teamsters president is blasting the Democrats because they've sold them out. They've sold out the working class, and that's what he says, not me. So this is kind of shocking. I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat.
Potential jurors reported to court in Chicago Tuesday morning and filled out questionnaires. Attorneys appeared in the afternoon to discuss pretrial issues. Former Speaker Madigan and co-defendant Michael McClain did not appear, but both are expected in court Wednesday morning. St. Xavier University professor David Parker says jury selection should take about 4 days. Jury selection, I think there were several thousand going out. They narrowed it down to about I think there was more than 1,000 jury something that's narrowed down to 180 people. Parker says the trial likely won't end before mid-December. The trial is anticipated to take maybe about 10 weeks with over 50 witnesses maybe. Madigan is charged with 23 counts of bribery, racketeering, and official misconduct. I'm Jim Talamonte. News on the air, on the web, on your app, and on Alexa. I'm Tom Davis. Here's the Bloomington Normal Forecast on Cities 92.9. Sunny today, high 77. Blue skies tonight down to 47. Sunny on Thursday with a high of 78. Friday mostly sunny with a high of 82. Saturday mostly sunny with a high of 80. Cooler Sunday. This weather report is lifted by DHP's Garage Doors, residential and commercial garage doors and entry doors since 1926. Schedule service at dhpsgaragedoors.com. Cities 92.9 sports. Season openers for the Blues and Blackhawks on the road in St. Louis took it to the Kraken with 3 goals in a 2-minute span in the second period, held on for the 3-2 win. The Blackhawks were the first opponent of the Utah Hockey Club, and Utah smoked them 5-2. Though Connor Bedard did get assists from both Blackhawk goals. The Phillies and Dodgers had the 2 best records in the National League, and both are on the brink of elimination as San Diego got 6 runs in the second and hung on to beat LA 6-5, while the Mets clobbered the Phillies 7-2. 4 games today: Cleveland, Detroit at 2, Philly and the Mets at 4, Yankees and Royals at 6, Dodgers, Padres at 8, NBA preseason. Bulls winning Cleveland 116-112. I'm Chris Murphy, Cities 92.9 Sports.
At Tax and Accounting Plus, they're rock stars, but instead of microphones and guitars, they use spreadsheets. Focus on growing your business and servicing your customers while Tax and Accounting Plus handles your payroll and bookkeeping. Find the experts at taxaccountingplus.com.
Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes, the Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, he blasted the Democrats for screwing over the union for the last few decades, even though they've given the Democrat machine $15.7 million in just the last 2 years. Okay, this president of the Teamsters union, we know that the Teamsters union did not endorse Kamala Harris, which is the first time they haven't endorsed in years. I think like the 1970s or something like that. But they have endorsed Republican candidates in the past. I want to be very clear about that. Richard Nixon, Reagan, they endorsed the Republican candidates. But outside of that, usually they've endorsed the Democrat. So this non-endorsement effectively is an endorsement of Donald Trump. I don't know why they didn't endorse Donald Trump, because the Teamsters union body, like the members, they took a vote and 60% of them wanted Donald Trump. But the union mob bosses, as I like to call them, union leadership, so the Sean O'Briens, they made the decision not to endorse anybody. So he's come out now, and he was on with Theo Vaughn, and it's he cusses a whole lot in this clip, so I didn't even bother cutting it. I'll just tell you what he says. The union president, the Teamsters union president, Sean O'Brien, blasting the Democrats for screwing over the union over the last few decades. And he says that we've given them $15.7 million. They are not the party of the middle class anymore. Republicans have taken on that role, and they are the party of the middle class. The left claims constantly that they're for the working class, for the working class, for the working class. They're actually funded by some of the richest elite among us. Okay, they are actually funded by the richest elite, and Republicans are funded by themselves largely, especially when you look at local races. I'm sure if you take a look at on IllinoisSunshine.org, that's a resource for you guys. If you take a look at Sharon Chung's donors and then you take a look at Desi Anderson's donors, they're both running in the 91st House District. If you take a look at their donors, I can tell you where they stand on positions and how they're going to vote for things once they get there. Largely, Republicans are self-funded. I mean, I would say 90% of the time Republicans are self-funded or like they have friends, businesses who contribute to their campaigns. Rarely do you see Republicans funded by unions. So I do want to talk about what Sean O'Brien said, but I've got to take a quick break. It's a hard break at the top of the hour, but you are not going to want to miss what he said on the Theo Von show because he blasts him. He completely goes after the Democrat Party, which was not on my bingo card for this year's election. I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Find me on YouTube and subscribe today. You can also text me at 309-451-9299. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Like I said, we are going to be talking about that union president, the Teamsters union president. Really quick, I do want to chat about unions contributing to Democrats and how they're screwed time and time again by Democrats. Okay, so I've done multiple stories about the legislative staff suing the speaker. With the Center Square. If you guys aren't subscribed to the Center Square, I highly recommend you do that. They have great articles, a great team there. And I highly recommend you go subscribe and get emails from the Center Square because they are on top of it there. So at the Democrat National Conference, the DNC convention, there was a news conference, and you had top Illinois Democrats weighing in on this pending lawsuit. So there's a lawsuit that names House Speaker Emanuel Welch, okay, as a defendant. Now there is this legislative staff association. Okay, for those of you who are not don't really understand what goes on in Springfield, there's the House, there's the Senate. Each senator, each House representative, they have a little staff that goes around and helps them craft bills. And there's even staff who operate, the chambers, turns on the microphones, make sure that the staff goes and gets water bottles or whatever it may be. They're there. A lot of times they help craft legislation and they do clerical work and things like that. Okay, so they work really hard, these people. It's busy. They pass a lot of bills out of the House and out of the Senate every single year or every single legislative session. So the staff association, the lead plaintiff is Brady Burden, and he says in the lawsuit that Welch is not allowing the staff to collectively bargain with their employer over wages, hours, and working conditions. Okay, now there's a reason for this. Okay, the Democrats, what they do at 2 a.m. in the morning, they'll craft legislation, passed budgets, and I'm sure that the staff is pretty sick and tired of working these crazy hours and working until 2 in the morning. Right, so they want to sit down and they want to negotiate with their employer. Not anti-union. I think that unions really don't serve a whole lot of purpose in the 21st century. Yeah, they've come a long way from making sure that you're not working, billion hours a week and you're like slaving away in some meat factory and you're getting your hand chopped off, right? And there's no safety. They served their purpose. Now you've got unions demanding that you take a pet bereavement or you have pet bereavement days where you have a scheduled amount of time off paid to grieve your pet. Okay, that's a little ridiculous. Okay, we've come a long way from ensuring that workers have basic human rights, right? Where they go to work and they're going to come out alive. Back in the industrial revolution, that wasn't really the case. You had people getting their hands chopped off from like a meat grinder or something. we've come a long way from that. Now we are fighting for not workers' rights, but how can we screw over employers? Okay, how can we screw over our employer? And it shouldn't be like that. There should be a working relationship between the employees and the employer. And some unions, not all, have gotten to a point where they're adversarial with their employer, and it creates a hostile environment. So the union sometimes can be hostile, and that relationship is broken. So it causes more issues than it does positive things. It causes more issues having the union. But in this case, I would see where, hey, we're kind of sick and tired of working until 2 a.m. Let's sit down with our employer and negotiate our wages, hours, and working conditions. So, the Democrats will tell you till they're blue in the face. Now, he passed this Amendment 1, which enshrines in the Constitution that all workers have the right to unionize, collectively bargain. Amendment 1 enshrines that into the Constitution. So to deny the staffers this ability to bargain their hours is a little ridiculous. It's a little hypocritical, right? So you've got Amendment 1, and it says that, hey, you have to sit down with these people, and you have to sit down with your employees and collectively bargain. And he pushed for that. Chris Welch did. And this just goes to show you the hypocrisy of Democrats. Okay, they'll sit there and they'll say they're for workers' rights until they're blue in the face. They'll even go out and enshrine it in the Constitution. But when it comes down to it, they will not practice what they preach. Okay, so you've got that situation right now where Chris Welch, his staff is saying, hey, we want to collectively bargain. We want better hours, better pay, things like that. And he won't do it. Okay, because it's, he's not for that. Now, my suggestion would be, let's not pass bills at 2 a.m. in the morning, Democrats. Let's make it to where it's a nice environment. Employer, there shouldn't be a hostile environment for these employees to begin with, right? And then, this top Democrat, Chris Welch, he points to a bill, right? He points to this bill that was a non-starter, and, even the Democrat Senate president said that the bill was a non-starter, and he says that I think the staff would agree with that. And I hope that the House will get together internally and come up with a solution. This is Senate President Don Harmon. I think everyone understands, including the staff, that there are fatal flaws in the bill. And I hope that the House leadership and the staff will get together and work out their own problems. So that's what the Senate president had said. Chris Welch is, of course, said that there's an existing law that prohibits him from sitting down with the staff, which is just kind of silly. Brady Burden explained that the Illinois Public Labor Relations Act provides protections for unions and management, and that there's that law does not apply. So, Welsh is referring to this law, that there's existing law that prohibits them from sitting down together, but that law doesn't apply. They could sit down and talk about working conditions. There's nothing that prohibits you from sitting down with your employees and talking about working conditions. Okay, so for Welch to claim that is disingenuous, and it just bothers me, the hypocrisy. Smash that like button if you're watching. We're going to be right back talking about the Teamsters president. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. And I was still in the streamers. This is kind of an important story. You had these Democrats. What they'll do is they're just they're hypocrites. Okay, so you've got Chris Welch. He's currently being sued by his own legislative staff, and they'll sit there and until the cows come home, they'll sit there and say that, oh, we're pro-worker, we're pro-workers' rights. But when it comes down to it, they won't sit down. He won't sit down. Chris Welch won't sit down with his own legislative staff. So the Illinois Legislative Staff Association and the lead plaintiff, Billy Burton, say that in the lawsuit, they say that is not allowing Chris Welch, the top Democrat in the House, is not allowing his staff to come to the table and bargain for, wages, better wages, hours, working conditions, things like that, despite there being a new provision in the Illinois Constitution that protects workers' rights. Okay, Amendment 1. You've got Amendment 1 out there, and what that did, it enshrined for every worker, government worker, to unionize and to bargain with their employer. And you've got Chris Welch saying, like, no, I don't want to, despite him even going out there and campaigning for the new provision in the Illinois Constitution. He campaigned for it. He tried to get it passed. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, this guy is kind of like a hypocrite, right? Like, he won't even sit down with his own staff. And he's out there saying, oh, I'm all for workers' rights. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to enshrine it in the Illinois Constitution. But when it comes down to it, I won't sit down with my own staff. So, the Illinois Senate President, Don Harmon, he says that he hopes House Democrats will get together and pass this bill, 4148, which they don't really need to pass a bill because they've already got the Illinois Constitution provision, Amendment 1, which I was against, by the way, because of things like this. It allows government employees to unionize and to strike. I mean, unionized strike, you could see the problems that could come from that. Firefighters, police officers, striking. We're not going to have police officers, right? And that could be a possibility. And this is really critical because if they strike, the staffers, we're not going to have government really doing their job, passing laws, because they're needed, that staff, during legislative session. So I was against Amendment 1 to begin with, but here we have Chris Welch campaigning for it, and he won't even abide by it. He won't even abide by his own rules. Okay, rules for thee, but not for me, kind of deal, right? And like I said, I'm not anti-union, but I don't think that there is really a big purpose for unions anymore. At this point, there just needs to be work done like adults, where employers and employees kind of work things out on a case-by-case basis. Unionizing is adversarial in its very nature nowadays. Back then, when you were fighting for, not working 1 billion hours a week, or your hand was getting chopped off by the meat grinder if you're, at a meat processing facility back in the Industrial Revolution, or that you come in and they're working you to the bone, or there's child labor, right? We had some of that. We are now in 2024, and it's come a long way from that to where employees are begging for time off for pet bereavement, which means when your pet dies, you want paid time off. Okay, so that at that point, you're just trying to screw your employer over. Okay, so there's employee-employer relationship, and unions are sometimes adversarial, and employers can be adversarial against their employees, and that's where you need to, say, hey, let's come to an agreement here and negotiate. But we've come to a long way to where now the roles are kind of reversed, where you've got the unions abusing employers, and they have to pay for your pet bereavement days. Okay, so that brings me to this: the Teamsters union president. Okay, he said that they've been screwing over the union for the last few decades. And I bring up the story about Chris Welch and his own legislative staff because they will screw you over. It doesn't matter how many times they say, oh, we're for the working class, I'm for working families, as J.B. Pritzker always says. When given the opportunity, they will screw you over 100%. That's why the Republicans, they have taken on the role of being the party for the middle class, being the party for the working class, okay? Because we understand that there needs to be an employer-employee relationship, and it needs to be non-adversarial. So here's the quote from Sean O'Brien. He was on Theo Vaughn, and it was like littered with F words, so I couldn't play that on air. But he says, quote, "I'll be honest with you, I'm a Democrat, but they've screwed us over for the last 40 years. Since I've been in office, 2.5 years, we've given the Democrat machine," so he's the union president and he's been in office for two and a half years. "We've given the Democrat machine $15.7 million. We've given Republicans just about $340,000. So largely they contribute to Democrats. Tell me something I don't know, union president." Okay. "People say the Democrat Party is the party of the working people. They're bought and paid for by those big tech companies." Yes, they have all this corporate interest. They are funded, and they are funded by some of the richest elite among us. Okay. So everything the left does affects the working class in lower wage earners the most. Everything the left does, everything Democrats do, the taxing the rich thing, that is only going to hurt middle class people and working class people, okay, lower earners. It hurts those people that they pretend to represent the most, actually. So it doesn't matter that the Teamsters union members spent $15.7 million in political donations over the past 2 years. That's pennies on the dollars in comparison to the big money donors. Okay. For example, like Planned Parenthood, right? They donate so much to the Democrats in Illinois. And that's why they could really care less about your pipe fitters union or your at the end of the day, because your contributions are just pennies on the dollars compared to their elite interest groups, their special interest groups. So it's fascinating because this shows just how much voters are realizing that the worst thing that they can do to their income is elect these people who are invested in big money interests, special interest groups over those they take an oath to represent. Okay, they're supposed to represent you. They're supposed to represent working people in unions. Now, unions contribute largely to Illinois Democrats, and that's Michael Madigan, where it's like, you scratch my back, I scratch your back. I craft favorable legislation or get you contract deals, government contract deals, if you contribute to my campaign. We have a lot of that going on in Illinois. But at the end of the day, in the Illinois Staff Association, the Legislative Staff Association, they're starting to catch on to this. At the end of the day, the Democrats will screw you. If you want better wages, if you want better hours, if you want all of this, they're not going to deliver on that. Okay, themselves. And we see that from the speaker, because he's not sitting down of his own free will. He could sit down and bargain with them collectively, but he won't do it. And the reason why he won't do it, well, I think it's because, the Democrats will be put at a disadvantage because they have a supermajority and they tend to push forward legislation at the last minute, and they tend to pass budgets at 2 a.m. in the morning. Okay. And they won't be able to do that anymore because they have to actually listen to their staff about, hey, I don't want to work until 2 a.m. in the morning. Hey, you can't force us to push forward this legislation last minute and put us under duress like this. So they're going to be put at a disadvantage. That's why House Speaker Chris Welch really won't sit down with these folks, is because they want that advantage of having the supermajority and being able to call a state budget or to pass the state budget at 2 a.m. Okay, they want that. They want that so that way they can have the advantage and government be done without any kind of transparency, right? Without any kind of public scrutiny. And they want to be able to operate in the dark. And they're going to lose that if the staff gets appropriate hours, working hours. So, yeah, that's the union president. And like I said, the union members, the Teamsters union members, they overwhelmingly, I would say 60-40. Kamala Harris lost the union member vote. And I don't know why they didn't endorse Donald Trump. Clearly, the union members want Donald Trump, but the union mob boss, Sean O'Brien, of course, he doesn't have the cojones to actually go out there and endorse Trump, even though he spent $15.7 million on these Democrats and they did nothing for them. And they just take your money. They tax you into oblivion. They say they're going to tax the rich. That's not what happens. They always, it always affects the middle class and the working class. So it's fascinating to see this. And yeah, I do need to shift gears and talk a little bit about Kamala Harris and her comments on The View. She delivered a critical blow to her campaign when she said that she wouldn't change anything about the last 4 years. So I've got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Woo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. We've got so much to get to today. I do want to talk about Kamala Harris campaigning against her own record, but then she just claimed on The View that she's proud of it. What? And that she wouldn't change a single thing over the last several years, including the Afghanistan withdrawal, question mark. I do also want to talk about Ron DeSantis and Joe Biden. They're calling out Kamala Harris for attempting to politicize Hurricane Milton. Wow. Incredible. You've got Kamala Harris politicizing this hurricane, and Joe Biden is calling her out for it. And Ron DeSantis, they're teaming up. That was also not on my bingo card. Ron DeSantis and Joe Biden alliance. So let's talk about Kamala Harris on the View first. You know, given the opportunity, she's going to make you suffer all over again. Okay, given the opportunity, she's going to continue this inflation increasing. She's going to make sure you continue to suffer from the 20% increase in inflation all over again. Okay, this is all. This also means that she's willing to open up the floodgates and keep the floodgates open and double down on everything Joe Biden was and more. She's going to keep the floodgates open for the illegal immigration, and she's going to double down on everything Joe Biden has done and more. Okay, so on The View, Kamala Harris was asked, if you could, would you do something different than Joe Biden during the past 4 years? Or are you going to do something different than Joe Biden did during the past 4 years? She responded with, quote, "Not a thing comes to mind. I wouldn't do anything differently." But, I mean, to be fair, nothing really ever comes to her mind. So maybe she just wasn't quick on her feet that day, like she always is. But she doubled down and she started taking credit for making your life miserable. Okay, so let's take a listen here. This is truly incredible. This is what is destroyed. She just lost the election right here.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
What? So wait a second. She actually doubles down and she takes credit for making your life miserable. I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had an impact. How about telling voters something that they don't know? Of course, we know that you sing from the same song sheet, as Joe Biden had said a couple of days ago when asked about Kamala Harris and her role with this administration. He goes, "Oh, we sing from the same song sheet," because what she basically said there was that she knew Joe Biden was senile all along, and that this is going to de facto be her second term. She goes, "I was part of most of the decisions that had impact. You know, Joe Biden, he didn't have any decision-making power. I mean, look at him. He's kind of senile." I mean, she didn't say that, but I think that's what she meant, right? According to Fox News, allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices and bring down cost of prescription medications down for seniors. This is what she says, quote, "But my intention is to expand that for all Americans." Okay, so she wants to negotiate drug prices and bring down the cost of prescription medication. Joe Biden didn't do that. Donald Trump did that. And she's saying, "Oh, I want to expand it for all Americans." Quote, she says, "The work we have done to invest in American industries, whether it be in terms of manufacturing," that's funny, and creating 800,000 new jobs, that's funny, around manufacturing, that's a lie. Those were all a shared priority that Joe Biden had and I had. all of that is lies. She's a pathetic liar, okay? And she's on this media tour, and Joe Biden is actually counter-programming her, which is kind of funny. He's holding White House press briefings while she is on The View, and, he's counter-programming her, and he's holding a White House press briefing on the Hurricane Milton, and Kamala Harris continues to politicize that hurricane. I want to play this clip. This is where she starts projecting her insecurities and accuses Ron DeSantis of ignoring her, which is not the case. She's not a part of this. She's not a part of the hurricane relief. She's not a part of responding to this. And Ron DeSantis makes that clear. I've got a clip of him talking about who really is responding to the hurricane and providing relief. But here's Kamala Harris, her projecting her insecurities. Here we go.
Now, he said this morning, you've never called regarding any of the storms Florida has had since you've been vice president until apparently now, and called it political. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, I have called and talked with, in the course of this crisis, this most recent crisis, Democrat and Republican governors. Called, taken the call, answered the call, had a conversation. So obviously, this is not an issue that is about partisanship or politics for certain leaders, but maybe is for others.
Mm-hmm. Now, he said this morning, you've never called regarding...
Oh, boy. There's Kamala Harris projecting and her insecurities. And Joe Biden actually responded. So this is really interesting. He responded by telling Americans he had given his personal cell phone number to Ron DeSantis, and he praised Florida leaders for doing such a great job in responding to Hurricane Milton. Let's take a listen to what the president of the United States says. This guy cannot stand Kamala Harris. I'm telling you, he's trolling Kamala Harris because he's upset that she took away and really, she was complacent in a de facto coup. She took away his ability to run for re-election. And this is why he says this.
The governor of Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday. And I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call. So I don't know. There was a rough start in some places, but every governor from Florida to North Carolina has been fully cooperative and supportive and acknowledged what this team is doing. And they're doing an incredible job. But we got a lot more to do.
Wow. Did not have that on my bingo card, folks, where Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis are in some sort of alliance together. I love it. He kind of outs her, or he put her out in the cold. Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris is like, Ron DeSantis isn't taking my phone call, and he's not responding to Hurricane Milton as he should. And she just started projecting her insecurities and accused Ron DeSantis of ignoring her calls. Joe Biden comes around and he says, well, he calls me. Well, he calls me, and I have a great relationship with this guy, and he's doing a great job. We're doing a great job. Everything's fine. Kamala Harris, she's not part of the club. Okay, that's essentially what Joe Biden says here. So I don't know if this is Joe. I mean, I obviously am not privy to that information. I don't know if this is him trolling Kamala Harris. What I do know is that there was a little bit of a physical altercation, allegedly. This is according to a White House staffer. I got to tell you, or a White House official. Now, I guess there was some sort of physical altercation between Jill Biden's staff and Kamala Harris's staff, which is kind of incredible. I've got to share this. There was a physical altercation between Jill and Kamala's staffers in the White House after Joe's press room last week. So last week he had a press conference, and that's where he said, oh, we sing from the same song sheet. So he wouldn't let her. Up to this point, Kamala Harris has been campaigning against her record as vice president and against this administration. She's been running against him, saying that she's going to fix the damage that's been caused by this administration. Okay, that's been her campaign tactic, is to run away from that administration. That's why she talks about her role as a prosecutor. That's why she talks about her time as a senator. She does not talk about her vice presidency because she's trying to run away from it. Okay, so that was about the press conference last week, was about Joe Biden saying, we're not going to let Kamala Harris run away from this administration. She was instrumental in getting things passed, like the Inflation Reduction Act, the American Rescue Plan Act, right? Tie-breaking votes as vice president. So this is interesting. There was a physical altercation after Joe's press room last week, began with accusations that the Bidens were undermining Kamala deliberately. Okay, so is he undermining Kamala deliberately? Is he trolling Kamala? I don't know. But what I do know is that if I was Sleepy Joe, I wouldn't take too kindly to the candidate who may or may not have been complacent in a de facto coup against me. Right. So we know top Democrats like the Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, the Obamas, they were all getting Joe to bow out. They said, hey, we can do this the hard way or the easy way. We're going to invoke the 25th Amendment if you announce your reelection and if you continue running for reelection. We're going to invoke the 25th Amendment against you, and you can go out the easy way or the hard way. We know top Democrats did that. Was Kamala complacent in that? I don't know. But if I was Sleepy Joe, I wouldn't take too kindly to this candidate. The left does nothing better than politicizing natural disasters. They do this every single time, and I want to get to this because they politicize it in a way that really just grinds my gears. They try to blame you, the victim of the natural disaster, and this is how you know you are in a violent relationship with the government. Okay, they try to blame you, the victim, for not acquiescing and bending the knee to the government's demands of taxing your breath. Okay, if they could, they would tax your breath because it releases carbon and they want the money, right? And because you're not cool with that, and because you want to eat meat and you want to drive a gas vehicle, they're upset with you and they blame you when there's natural disasters that happen. So they politicize natural disasters. It's not Republicans that politicize natural disasters. It's always the left who politicizes it and makes it about green weenie climate change, which is just ridiculous. I've got to take a quick break, but we're going to be back talking about how the left politicizes natural disasters next on Conservative Cap. Hey friends, if you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. So glad that you're here. The brain dead will still vote for her. Yes, the Democrats would be nothing without this low information voter. And when I say low information, I mean if you were to ask them who the vice president was, they probably wouldn't know. The current sitting vice president. They might know who the president is. But if you were to ask them who the vice president was, they probably would never. And they don't know. And those are the types of people that the Democrats rely on, the people who have their heads in the sand and have no idea what's going on. Smash that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Yes, that is exactly what's happening in the Southeast states right now. The left, they politicize natural disasters every single freaking time. You know who's doing it the worst? Let me pull up the tweets. Oh, it just bothers the heck out of me. You've got Eric Swanson, who's this weatherman, right? And he's congressman and he's running for re-election. And you've got Joe McGraw running in that district as well. Eric Swanson has politicized these hurricanes to no end. I mean, it's all about green weenie and it's all about, because you won't allow us to tax your breath, because you won't allow us to force you into an electric vehicle, because you won't allow us to get you to stop eating meat. You're the reason why these natural disasters are happening. Not true. The earth changes. There's natural disasters all the time, and it's been going on for years. I'll point to Hurricane Katrina. Okay, that happened, 2008, something like that. And I mean, it was devastating. That hurricane was also devastating. So, I mean, what? I mean, it was this hurricane, from what I can tell, and I don't know what they're doing with the death toll numbers. Some people say that they're hiding the death toll. I wouldn't doubt that FEMA is hiding the death toll to try to make this look better than what it really is. They're trying to put lipstick on a pig and not share the death toll with anybody. But from what I understand, Hurricane Katrina had a high death toll as well. It was like 1,000 people. Right now, it's looking like over 200 people for Hurricane Helene. And if climate change was getting progressively worse, right, you would think that the hurricanes would be getting progressively worse. Hurricane Katrina was worse than Hurricane Helene, right? So if this climate change argument is going to weather, if this climate change is going to stand, you have got to make the argument that the hurricanes are getting progressively worse. And because of the climate change, and there's no way to prove that. If we're looking at death tolls, Hurricane Katrina was worse, right? So, I mean, that argument kind of sucks, okay, to say that the hurricanes are caused by climate change. Nobody can prove that, and it's really pseudoscience to suggest that. Now you've got Eric Swanson out there, saying that Project 2025 wants to get rid of technology, and it wants to get rid of the National Weather Service. And he blames Donald Trump, right? And he says it's Donald Trump's Project 2025 that wants to get rid of the National Weather Service. And he says, oh, well, the National Weather Service, they're doing the work and they're keeping people safe. I mean, the best that they can do is really like warn people that this is going to happen, right? And, it's a government agency as well. There's probably a lot of bloat in the National Weather Service. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have the National Weather Service, but there's probably a lot of government bloat. I haven't read that particular part of Project 2025. Now, look, we all know Project 2025 is not Donald Trump's plan. Okay, this came from the Heritage Foundation. I don't know how many times I got to fact check this, but this came from the Heritage Foundation, which is a right-wing organization, nonprofit group, and they crafted like their wish list, okay, of what they would like to see happen. Donald Trump had nothing to do with it. It was the Heritage Foundation. We know this, okay, right on the freaking, like on the table of contents, it says Heritage Foundation on it. So it doesn't have anything to do with Donald Trump. And like I said, they've made this into a boogeyman, Project 2025. I've read through it. I haven't read this particular instance about the National Weather Service, if it's in there, and what it exactly calls for. Likely, it calls for the defunding of a lot of this bureaucracy and bloat within this government agency that isn't really contributing to technology or the forecasters. It probably is just saying, hey, there's some high-level employees that get paid to do absolutely nothing, which happens in all government agencies, right? And cutting a little bit of that blow is always going to be beneficial to the taxpayer, because we're going to save them money, and maybe we're spending way too much money on these agencies, right? So that's what I'd imagine it says. It talks about cutting government, which I'm all for, which a lot of people are for, because we want lower taxes. But Eric Swanson is clearly politicizing this. And the left they're just so good at politicizing natural disasters. And what really bothers me about that is that, people are dying, and to sit there and try to make them into, they're the victims, and you're victim blaming right now because they want to eat meat or drive a gas powered car, right? So I'm going to be right back. You're kicking it with me, Conservative Cat, on Cities 92.9. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes, I so do appreciate you being here each and every single morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's a daily show. I do want to share this with you. The left, they will continue to politicize natural disasters. They're very good at this. They politicize natural disasters. They blame you for not bending the knee to their crazy demands. If the government had their way, they'd tax you for breathing. If the government had their way, they'd make it to where you can't eat red meat anymore and you'd be driving around in an electric vehicle because you don't want those decisions for your life. They get upset with you and they victim blame. Okay, and they victim blame people who are dying, people who are suffering through this natural disaster, and they blame you for contributing to climate change, and that's the reason why these natural disasters happen. Natural disasters have been happening since I could remember, okay, and since you can remember. They happen, okay, wildfires, hurricanes. Now, have they been getting progressively worse? I don't know if you can really prove that. This one, Hurricane Helene, right? From what I understand, the death toll is lower than what it was back in, what was it, 2008 when Hurricane Katrina hit. It was thousands of people. So, I mean, to make the argument that they're getting progressively worse, I don't know if you can even really make that argument and how you really measure that, because Hurricane Helene, the death toll is lower. Now, I don't know if they're withholding the amount of deaths because FEMA, they're out there on the ground. Gosh, this is just so morbid to even think about. They're collecting bodies, they're counting. This is just so sad. But if you're going to measure, hey, this hurricane is worse than this hurricane, I mean, you would think the hurricanes are progressively getting worse because climate change is progressively getting worse, right? And you can't really make that argument. The argument is kind of, it sucks. So the left, they never let a crisis go to waste, which is why Kamala Harris is acting like she's done more for Florida's hurricane than Governor Ron DeSantis and Joe Biden combined. She is not in the loop at all. And Joe Biden confirmed this. He says, I have given my personal phone number to the governor. We've been in contact. He's doing a great job. I'm doing a great job. And he says, we've got more to do, which is, I think, one of the more presidential things I've heard come out of Joe Biden's mouth. Where he says we've got a lot more to do. He recognizes there's a lot more to do, but he's also recognizing that he can't do this alone and that he needs to work with all of the governors in these Southeast states. So I do want to play Eric Swanson. So he's running for re-election. And this is critical that I play this for you. This is him politicizing a natural disaster. In the highest fashion and in the craziest way. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Now Democrats, like my next guest, are tying extreme weather to extreme policies, specifically the Conservative Project 2025. Congressman Eric Sorensen of Illinois joins me now. Congressman, you worked as a meteorologist for decades, so we can almost take the politics out of it on this one. I mean, what's your reaction to a proposal?
I can't with this woman. She's like, how can I kiss your butt, Eric?
That would end NOAA, end the National Weather Service. And why does that matter?
Yeah, it's outrageous when you think about it, because something as nonpartisan as the National Weather Service, which protects us, which issues the watches, the warnings, the National Hurricane Center, which literally they put themselves in harm's way when they get into airplanes to go and do the reconnaissance of tropical storms and hurricanes. We as Americans, we don't really bat an eye for the benefit of the National Weather Service. But just imagine for just a moment, if that were to go away, what would that mean for areas that have been ravaged, for people to not get the warnings ahead of time? What would it mean for even air travel if we didn't have forecasters understanding turbulence? Or what would we be talking about today on this Saturday? A new tropical storm, Milton, has formed in the Gulf of Mexico, which is again setting its eyes on Central Florida.
Before I let you take your weatherman hat off, we've seen intensity of recent storms only growing. What do you see fueling that?
Yeah, so look, I mean, it's as simple as understanding, as we put more energy into the system, into this climate system, as we put more energy, more heat, we're going to get more energy out. And so what happens here, as we're seeing the Gulf of Mexico water temperatures well into the middle and upper 80s this time of year, it fuels more fierce hurricanes. And in this...
Okay, I don't know about Milton. He's talking about Milton here, but Hurricane Helene. Oh no, he is talking about Hurricane Helene. Okay, so this is Hurricane Helene he's talking about here. Hurricane Helene, how do you measure how strong a hurricane is? Now, if you look at Hurricane Katrina, that, less heat because it was years ago, that had a higher death toll. Okay. And some would argue that that was a stronger hurricane, an extremely higher death toll, 1,000, where we're looking at about 200 for Hurricane Helene. So, measuring the strength of hurricanes, I don't know how he could say this. But more people died back then. You would think that we'd have more climate change or more heat in the atmosphere now in 2024 than we did back then. Let's continue.
Case, not just in Helene, but in this new tropical storm, we could see this one get larger faster. And so that means that the time to prepare, especially for those residents of Florida, my own brother lives in Sarasota, and he's texting me updates on the hurricane. They've got to make plans faster than ever before because these tropical storms and hurricanes are developing faster because of that heat energy.
Okay. So it's all about politicizing, and they're going to make you the victim out to be the person, you the victim, the people who are devastated by these hurricanes. They're going to try to make you out to be the bad guy because you won't get an electric vehicle or a gas-powered car, or you want your gas-powered car, you want to eat meat and things like that. But you've got the Taylor Swifts of the world, the Governor J.B. Pritzkers of the world, who are flying around on their private jets. Okay, so I mean, I don't know what these people are talking about here. They're just politicizing. And the Project 2025 thing, we know that's not connected to Donald Trump. That was a conservative think tank, Heritage Foundation, which I've read through bits and pieces of Project 2025. Not all that bad. What he's talking about here, I haven't really read that part about the National Weather Service, but I would imagine, and much of the bulk of what Project 2025 is, it's cutting government bloat. Okay, now I'm sure, like everything else, NOAA, National Weather Service, there's a lot of bloat and government bloat where the money isn't going towards technology, developing new technology. The money isn't going towards forecasters and the people who are on the ground doing the work. A lot of the time in those agencies, the money goes, your taxpayer dollars go to some pencil pusher who doesn't want to work, who doesn't want to lift a finger, and they make $300,000 or something crazy like that. Okay, that's a lot of what your taxpayer dollars go towards. Pam Reese, I think she just got another raise, by the way. $200,000+ I mean, that's absolutely insane. That's what your tax dollars go towards when you pay for government agencies or government workers. Okay, it goes towards, a lot of the time, crazy salaries. Look at the public school system. Okay, the enrollment has been down. Okay, across the board in Illinois, enrollment has been down. There's not as many kids, but they haven't cut any staff, any teachers. They haven't cut any teachers despite enrollment being down, but despite there being less kids in the public school system. And what's even crazier is that they haven't cut any administrators, people who are not actually the foot soldiers, who are in the classrooms dealing with the kids every day. They've added administrative roles. You've got the DEI director who makes over $100,000 and for District 87 and Unit 5. Okay, so there's all kinds of bloat in these government agencies, and what Project 2025 does consistently, it talks about cutting a lot of these agencies and parts of these agencies, not obliterating them. Now, I don't know specifically about the National Weather Service here, what Eric Sorensen is talking about. I didn't read that part of Project 2025. A majority of Project 2025, the crux of it is, and like I said, this isn't even Donald Trump's plan. This is a wish list. It's no different than me getting on my computer saying what I would like to see from the Trump administration. Okay, that's no different from me saying that. It's just the Heritage Foundation who got down, they wrote out a wish list of what they wanted. And it's not even policy. Okay, it's not even projected policy. It's not even a potential policy. And Eric Sorensen is clearly politicizing this, and it's really sad because people are actually dying, and he's trying to use this. Don't ever let a good crisis go to waste, as the Democrats like to say. All right, I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. How well are the electric vehicles handling the evacuation traffic? Stop it. All right, that I'm clipping that. That is one of the best comments I've seen in a long time. Great job. Yes, that's hilarious. Hilarious. So yeah, the electric vehicles, we all know that they don't handle very well in stop and go traffic because you got to stop and charge them, right? And there's not a whole lot of infrastructure to stop and charge these electric vehicles, in stop and go traffic and yeah, the evacuation traffic, right? Also, electric vehicles terrible in the cold. There were people waiting outside these just like 2 or 3, the only 2 or 3 electric chargers in Cook County, right? Chicago. You had people lined up out the wazoo waiting to charge their electric vehicles because the extreme cold, drains that battery like crazy. And you had people sitting out in the cold waiting to charge their electric vehicle. So yeah, how well do they handle in evacuation traffic? Also, there was a hurricane, I can't remember, but the issue with the electric vehicles is that they stopped working after a hurricane because of all of the salt water and because the wind and things like that. They stopped working because the batteries got corroded, and even in some cases started fires. So that actually happened during I think it was a hurricane or a tropical storm a few years ago. And it was a really big deal because, I mean, everybody who had an electric vehicle in Florida couldn't ride around in their electric vehicle anymore. The storm destroyed it. Okay, so yeah, great point. Yeah, wonderful point. How strong were the hurricanes back in the 1600s and 1700s? To be honest with you, I am not a science person. I am not a weather person. I really don't care because at the end of the day, this earth is going to pass away. The flowers are going to fade. The grass is going to wither. But I stand on Isaiah 40 verse 8, which is, the word stays the same. The word stays the same. And the only thing that we're promised is the word of God. And really, I mean, you can pray. Yes, I pray and I do because God can stop storms, physical storms, or even symbolic storms, right? He can stop anything. So I pray all the time that these storms stop and that Milton will not destroy any lives. I've been praying that over the past couple of weeks here for the hurricanes. I don't really get upset about the weather because I have no control over it. Okay, it's the weather. And you can study it. I don't think that it's wrong to study it or to develop technology to track it. And I think that's all great. And so that way we can be prepared in the physical world and, evacuate when we need to. But these people are they're what I call hypochondriacs a lot of the time. Not in this case. This was a very devastating storm, but a lot of the times they hype up hurricanes. They hype up weather because they want to instill fear, right? That's what the media and weathermen too. I mean, they're not excluded from this. They're a part of a government agency. Quite literally, NOAA is a government agency. And they're all in charge of stoking fear, right? And trying to make their job seem super relevant because it's really not at the end of the day. Because what do weathermen do? They just tell you about it. And 90% of the time they're wrong. Okay. At least for me here in Illinois, a lot of times weathermen are wrong. And, they try to justify their job by freaking you out, and that's the way weather works, in my opinion. They try to freak you out to make themselves seem super relevant, like the superheroes of the world. But really, at the end of the day, what are they going to do? Storm's going to come either way. I consult God because He can actually stop the storm, right? Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in. Kamala Harris, she is projecting her pathetic insecurities and blaming of course, Ron DeSantis for his response. Although Joe Biden says, hey, Ron DeSantis is doing just a fine job. Here's Ron DeSantis talking about Kamala Harris. He calls her delusional, which is kind of funny, actually. This is a great clip. Here we go.
And we've been laser focused on leveraging all resources available, including from the federal government. And I've been in touch with both FEMA and the president, as well as marshaling all our state agencies and working to support our local communities. And so for Kamala Harris to try to say that my sole focus on the people of Florida is somehow selfish is delusional. She has no role in this. In fact, she's been vice president for 3.5 years. I've dealt with a number of storms under this administration. She has never contributed anything to any of these efforts. And so what I think is selfish
Has she ever
is her
called
trying to
before?
blunder into this. No. And here's
Has
the
she ever
thing.
called before?
She has no role. No, she has no role in this process. I'm in contact with the president of the United States. I'm in contact with FEMA director. I'm obviously managing all our state agencies. We're supporting all our local government. And I will say this, I've had storms under both President Trump and President Biden, and I've worked well with both of them. She's the first one who's trying to politicize the storm, and she's doing that just because of her campaign. She's trying to get some type of an edge. She knows she's doing poorly.
All right, so there you go. That's Ron DeSantis. And look, folks, she is delusional. That summed it up perfectly because she's no one. She is no one, and she is politicizing this storm. Nobody else is politicizing it. Everybody's trying to get on the ground and do the right thing, and she's out there politicizing it. Kamala Harris also blamed Donald Trump for the lack of response for the hurricane victims in North Carolina, and I'm weak. That's hilarious. You're the one who gave them a measly $750 that won't go anywhere because of rampant inflation. All right, I got to go. But you guys have a blessed rest of your day. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. We'll do it all over again tomorrow morning. Find me on YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I leave you with this. The only thing more pathetic than Kamala's lack of a response for Americans in need is blaming Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis for everything she is. The only thing more pathetic is that than her response, her lack of response, the $750 measly dollars, is that she's blaming Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis for everything that she is and is not. Okay, she hasn't even responded. All right, you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. Love you.